Before we dive into the episode, I do want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, MacuHealth. If you've been following my content, then you know how deeply passionate I am about ocular health, as well as improving and protecting the eyesight of our patients in the clinic. MacuHealth is known for their triple carotenoid formula, lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. And whether you're concerned about age-related macular degeneration or just want to help your patients with the nutrients they need to stay sharp, MacuHealth has you covered. We'll talk about MacuHealth again a little bit later in the episode, but otherwise, let's get going. Eyes and shine, welcome to the I Give a Damn podcast, brought to you by Fluorescene Media, the same company behind ODs on Facebook. I'm your host, Dr. Joseph Allen, and today we are joined by none other than Dr. Darryl Glover. Dr. Glover is not only a doctor, but he's an entrepreneur, and to say it lightly, has a magnetic personality and vision for optometry and who we are and how we serve our patients. In today's episode, we discuss branding, breaking down not only branding from a business perspective, if you happen to be a business owner, but also from a personal branding perspective and how important that is for every clinician and professional. I think there's just a lot of good information and resources in here. Dr. Glover shares a lot of great insights, and so I think this is going to be really an amazing episode for everyone to hear. So without further ado, let's lean in. And here we go with Dr. Darryl Glover. Well, Darryl, thank you so much for being here on the podcast. This is kind of come full circle in a way.
Yeah.
Because I've been a guest on your podcast a long time ago. And I think back in 2019, you and I kind of did an impromptu thing in California at an event.
Yes.
So it's been just crazy to see.
Wow. You're right, man. That was for, what was that event? I can't recall the exact name of the event, but it was with Envision Magazine.
There's a couple, yeah, It was all about using social media or being involved in building your practice with media, that sort of thing.
And Jen and I interviewed you, and there was Dr. Jackie, the other person we interviewed? I can't remember who was the other person. It was two of you that were there that we interviewed after one of our lectures.
Been a while. I'll have to look it up. Maybe I'll put a snapshot.
that mental Rolodex, right?
For people who are watching on YouTube, I'll try to find a picture and put a snapshot on there.
Okay.
But Darryl, thank you again for just being here and spending some time with us.
Sure.
You have a wealth of knowledge and incredible things that you've been doing in the industry. And so I think it's going to be really valuable for our listeners to have you here and hear a little bit more about you and kind of just the knowledge that you've possessed and accumulated over the years.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, but I think it's just because I run my mouth too much. That's all it is, my friend. That's it.
Sometimes it is the importance of preaching your passion and knowledge, though. And a lot of times
100%.
we maybe hide it and keep it too much to ourselves.
I agree.
So you yourself have done, a lot of different things. You've been involved in many different projects, not only your own podcasting, but building clinics both here in the U.S. and abroad.
You got it.
And then you've even started some kind of initiatives with like the Black Eye Care movement.
That's correct.
That's an important thing.
Absolutely.
And I think when I first started hearing about that, I'm like, I never even realized that. And that could be just because how I was raised and kind of been blinded by a facade. I've just never been introduced to that.
Yeah.
So can you just fill us in your own words, kind of from getting into optometry school and then all these other projects? How did you find that path in being an entrepreneur?
So let's take it from the beginning, right? I mean, so much to say, so little time, but let's get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So I've been in the eye care industry for about 25 years now. And it really all started when I was in my undergrad. I went to NC State, North Carolina State University, and I needed a job. I needed some money so I can go out and party and have a good time. So I looked up at that time. It might have been the newspaper or something. I can't recall what it was. But I found a job and it was selling glasses. And I remember the first week that I sold my first pair of glasses, a guy came in and Joe, he looked at me and he just had this mean face and he took his glasses off and literally threw them across the counter and said, I need a new look. I need a new pair of glasses. And, my younger self at that time, I was almost ready to jump over across the table and, have some words with him, right? Younger, crazier, sillier at that time. But as we continue to build dialogue and have conversation, I noticed this guy has something going on.
Mm.
So long story short, we found some glasses for him. He loved them. He picked them up. And when he picked them up, he put them on and he looked at me and then he looked to the left, and then he looked to the right, and he looked right back at me, and then he smiled. And that smile pierced my heart. And ever since then, I've been in the eye care game, man. I've done everything from being an eyewear consultant, optometric technician, a manager, a doctor. I've trained in all those positions, part of leadership at My Eye Doctor, podcast host, anything you can think of in eye care, I've essentially have done. But I essentially got in this business because of a smile that was created from the person that's sitting in front of me. And that changed my life. And I'm so thankful because it's helped me grow as a person personally, but of course, professionally as well. So that's how I got into the game, man. I just needed a little bit of money. And what do you know? I'm here now.
No, I love those sort of stories, and I
Yeah.
think everybody, again, we all have those. But for you, it's not just being because you could have chosen to just stay and
Yeah.
sell glasses, or but you pushed yourself,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you became a doctor, and now, but now you've opened clinics and you've started new things.
Yeah.
What kind of sparked the entrepreneur bug for you?
Sure. So, it's funny you asked that. I got asked this question not too long ago, and I started digging back and I was like, man, I've been hustling since a little kid, right? Um, I started officially working when I was 14. My first job was Chick-fil-A. But
Mm,
even prior to that, I was hustling, making flyers for the barbershop, sweeping hair. And this is when I had hair, so don't judge me now, right? And, just building different things at an early age. But most importantly, my dad had a business at one point. My wife's father is a big businessman in Nigeria.
mm.
Um, and I just been surrounded by a lot of hustlers and entrepreneurs in general. And I just kind of follow that lead. It's all about who you put around you or the energy that's around you for the most part. And just being in those type of environments, it just really helped me to blossom and become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I've definitely heard that from other people, and I don't know who originally coined it, but
Yeah.
it's that you are an accumulation of like the five
Five
people you
people.
spend most
You
time with
got it. You
around you,
got it.
surround yourself
You
with.
got it. And I'm very intentional with who I put around me. So that is a great point and a great call out as well.
So with kind of seeing
Yeah.
so much, because you've again started by selling glasses, and
Yeah.
you said you became a consultant,
Yeah.
and then now you've owned businesses. You've seen the industry from so many
Oh,
perspectives.
yeah.
So with all of that, how kind of where I want to go is like, how do you see optometry and the role of branding?
Oh, man, that's a fantastic question. Optometry does a horrible job with branding. We probably are the worst healthcare disciplinary when it comes to branding. No one knows about us.
Mm,
I think what's happening is being that we are not well known. That makes us kind of the second, third, fourth, maybe sometimes even fifth option for someone that wants to go into healthcare to join.
mm,
But if we actually get the ideal candidates or create awareness earlier, there will be a better way to brand and promote this profession. Because if it's your first choice, that means you have a passion and a love for it. And we all know to push a brand, you got to believe in
mhm.
what you're out there selling or what you're pushing or what you're preaching about for the most part.
So I can kind of understand that because I've heard from other doctors,
Yeah,
other students even, and other people in the industry who have concern that the morale or kind of the motivations for a lot of doctors, and I don't want to just shame it on young doctors. I think it's all over, but
sure.
is it a job?
Mm,
Is it just a means to an end?
yeah,
Or is it something you live and breathe
yeah, yeah.
passionately with a purpose?
And I agree. And that's why we have to create an awareness at an early age. I mean, in my office, any patient that walks through my door that's in middle school, high school, I tell them about optometry
Mhm.
because you got to create that awareness at an early age. And I tell them the same thing every single year that they come in. And my goal and my hope is if I continue to tell everyone at some point in time, we're going to get a yes here and there, right? Here or there. And at some point in time, what'll happen is we'll be able to build a better brand for optometry because it is now these students, these potential optometrists or pre-optometry students' number one choice to, go into when it comes to healthcare.
So, just to kind of take a step back,
Yeah,
one of the reasons I wanted to highlight you and ask your thoughts and question, kind of your ideas on branding, because I think you've done an amazing job with branding
thank you.
of who you are, how you stand out, and clearly that has been echoed into your involvement in what you do for my eye doctor, for
Sure.
example. Right? If you do you mind explaining kind of your role with branding and
Yeah,
leadership in that
absolutely.
role?
So I serve on our leadership team for our professional services team, and my role at My Doctor is the program director for brand and inclusion. And essentially, what that means is I get to go around the world just screaming how great My Eye Doctor is. Right? I get to go to all the conferences, all the schools, go to different markets, and just educate about our
Mhm.
brand. And I love our brand. And it's just one of those things that it's not even a job to me. I'm passionate about it. And it makes it easier for me to get out there and shake hands and kiss babies and spread the gospel. But, I want to take a step back. I always tell students, doctors, when they're looking to figure out what their next move is, to really understand what their personal brand is.
Mm.
See, the problem, Joey, is people just jump into an opportunity without even looking to see if it aligns with who they are as a person. And I'm a firm believer that in order for you to really be effective in whatever you do, you got to make sure your personal brand aligns with that professional brand or whatever partner that may be out there. So when it comes to branding, I really like to break down brand with an acronym, brand,
Mhm.
and B standing for you got to believe in yourself and believe what you do and understand your purpose, your values, things of that nature. You got to establish that,
Mhm.
right? If you don't establish that from day one, how the hell are you going to do anything else? How are you going to brand something? How are you going to push something if you don't even know what you're on this earth for? The R in brand for me stands for reputation, right? What is your reputation? Is it good? Is it not so hot? What are you known for? What do you look like on that digital landscape? What does it really look like, right? And then the A is what is your advantage? You know, what are you great at? What can you do that people love? See, a lot of times we get lost in the sauce by wanting to um, do what we're really passionate about at times, and sometimes that passion and what you're great at don't always
Mhm.
go together. So it's very important to look at what you're actually great at and leverage the hell out of that more than anything. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that. And then we go to the next letter N. It's all about networking, baby. You got to be able to shake hands and kiss babies, as I always say, right? You got to be able to get out to conferences. You got to be able to have that digital footprint online. You have to have your own website. You have to have business cards. You have to be able to have a conversation. But when you're networking, truly create value for that person that's in front of you. And then, of course, the D is the deliver, right? You got to get out there and deliver all types of contents to push on all different platforms. But most importantly, your value proposition, right? So you
Mhm.
just got to get out there and make it happen.
I love the personal brand
Yeah.
side of things. And I think it's something that I think it's just not taught
Yeah.
at an early age to really have that. And I think a lot of us have a personal brand. We're just not maybe fully aware of it.
100%.
So for whether you're a young doc or older doc, because you can always rebrand. You hear about other companies; they'll sometimes do a rebranding
Oh,
after
yeah.
so many years. And I always I try to put myself back a decade, and there was these times I had to sit back and like try to work out clarity of who I am, what do I want, what makes me happy,
Right.
what makes me feel fulfilled. Did you ever have a moment where you had to sit and reflect and get clarity on that? I want to take a quick break just to remind you about today's sponsor, MacuHealth. If you are listening to this, then you probably care about eye health just as much as I do. MacuHealth offers a line of incredible supplements that's formulated around published science. MacuHealth is known for featuring the three most important carotenoids for your macula: lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. Whether you're managing age-related macular degeneration or simply looking to offer your patients a high-quality supplement you can trust, MacuHealth has your back. Now, back to the episode.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this just didn't come overnight, right? I mean, I I had to sit down, figure it out, but most importantly, I had to talk to people that knew who I am essentially,
Mm.
right? So my mentors, my family, my best friends, I just had to really sit down and ask them, what am I great at? What do I do well? What do I suck at? Right. But then also, I had to sit down and just have that come to Jesus moment and just pray about it as well.
Mhm.
And I think, amongst all those things, I was able to get some clarity and figure out, what my calling is. And for me, I personally think it's all about branding. I mean, when you look at what I've done with my eye doctor, what I've done with Defocus Media, what I've done with Black Eye Care Perspective, what I've done with Africa Media, it's all the same thing. It's branding and being able to help convey a message for different partners out there in the world that I may partner with, right?
Mhm.
But it took some time to get there. It didn't happen overnight. I really think it hit me during the pandemic more than anything. I sat down and I was thinking, I was like, man, how did I get here? Why do people want to listen to me? What message am I creating? What value am I creating to the eye care industry? And during the pandemic, I put a lot of content out, and then I figured out at that time that I am great when it comes to building a brand. And I think the secret sauce behind it also is aligning with brands. Again, going back to that personal brand
Mhm.
that align with who I am as a person. See, I took my personal brand and I partnered with companies that align with that personal brand. For example, my eye doctor. The purpose of that organization is to help patients live their best lives.
Mhm.
My purpose is to create the state of happiness through the art of vision. So you can see the alignment there makes it easy for me to get out and do whatever I need to do.
So, with establishing your personal brand and making that
Yeah,
connection, what about doctors who are trying to build a business
yeah.
and come up with how do they brand that business? How do they position themselves, create a experience,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
Because if there's a brand, an image, or something they're trying to strive for, if there's a disconnect, you can feel that as a customer,
yeah.
right? Do you agree with
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you have to do is before you even get into that brand, what's your end goal? Because
Hmm.
that's going to impact what that branding looks like. Is your goal to pass that practice down to one of your kids that may come in and take over? Or is your goal to sell to private equity? Those are two different ways that you're going to brand your practice. If it's to pass down to a family member, then maybe you want to have your name of your practice or whatever your community
Hmm.
is. If your goal is to sell to private equity or someone else, you may want to have a name that is not your last name, but most importantly, you want to start branding like whatever brand that you may potentially sell to, right? So I think you have to take a step back and kind of figure out what your end goal is more than anything. But when you get into the guts of it, I think you have to just really look at um, what do you want to be known for, right? And how can you create that experience from online to when they walk into your practice as well? How can you take what you're known for and sprinkle that throughout the entire patient journey,
Yeah.
not just from a patient standpoint, but also from an employee standpoint, because there's two sides of that that you have to look at and view. And I think if you're able to make that happen, it's easier for you to build an incredible brand.
Hmm. And I think this is just as you're telling me this, I'm
Yeah,
like I'm having this reflection of when I was just a young OD, and I was honestly I was doing fill-in work. I was just trying to make a paycheck,
yeah,
and I remember feeling disconnected in
mm,
what I was doing with the patients I was seeing
yeah,
because I knew in my heart that's not where I wanted to be.
yeah,
It wasn't the community necessarily I was really passionate about serving.
yeah,
It was just a means to an end.
right.
And I think because my branding didn't align with
The
that
business.
business, the
Hmm.
strategy, what really the branding of that business was, I think I could feel it,
Yeah,
and I'm sure patient experience they could feel it.
and that,
They probably wouldn't be able to say what it was, but
right,
they
but they
could.
could see the disconnect. That patient journey wasn't as effective as it could be, and that's why I love working at my eye doctor because again, I took my personal brand and aligned it with a brand that aligns with who I am as a
Yeah.
person. When you think about my love for diversity, I love to create diversity in eye care. And I look at our executive team at my eye doctor. We have a woman that's our CEO, Sue Downs. She's the co founder and CEO to this day, and we've been in business for 21 years. We have a Black chief medical officer, right? We have a Hispanic chief marketing officer. We have an Asian chief information officer. We have a seasoned young lady, I like to say, that's our chief people officer, Caucasian male, that's our chief operations officer. But that diversity that I see aligns with who I am as a person. So
Yeah.
it allows me to work, at a high level whenever I'm in a clinic because I believe in the brand that I'm serving because it aligns with who I am on my personal
Mhm.
branding level as well.
So with kind of, and I love that, by the way. I
Yeah.
just love that diversity component, and
Oh
I think
yeah.
that's becoming more recognized as a superpower.
Oh, it is. 100%. It's no doubt about it. I say that all the time when I go to the various schools and I educate about working for my eye doctor. What is our superpower? It's our diversity.
Mhm.
More diverse teams outperform non-diverse teams. And I was seen during the pandemic when all my colleagues, they had to close their practices or they had to leave and they weren't getting paid from whatever employer
It
they
was a
were
tough
with.
time.
It was a tough time. We didn't have that at my eye doctor. And it's because we had a diverse leadership that was thinking about all pieces of the puzzle when that took place. And as a result of it, we had a lot of happy doctors during that time.
Yeah, that's good. I'm happy. I'm happy for that. So when it comes to branding for a clinic, for a doctor, I think anybody who's listening to this and they're like, you know what, they're right. This might be something I need to think about
Oh yeah.
to fix for my business, my clinic, because you may have a reputation right now that you realize, we've had some poor employees, maybe we switched something, it's not working out. That's okay. Where do you want to go? Right?
Yeah.
Like I think you said it very well, like, where are you going? End
Yeah.
in mind, keep the end in
That's
mind.
it.
It's okay to rebrand. How would you advise maybe a doctor or maybe a new young student doctor who's a recent grad?
Yeah.
How would you advise them to kind of reflect and come up with a rebrand?
Yeah. So, when it comes to rebranding, I always say you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's the famous saying, right? Or
Mhm.
something to that extent. Look and see what other big brands out there have already done what you're trying to do and study them well. Maybe pick five, maybe pick one out of healthcare and the other four out of various sectors and kind of study them
Mhm.
and take the best practices that you see from that and then implement it into whatever you have going on as well. But most importantly, just make sure you incorporate whatever you're good at within that rebranding as well.
Mhm.
Be concerned about colors, be concerned about images, be concerned about what type of culture that you want to create. You have to factor all those things in. But most importantly, I think if you just study someone that has done something, it's not going to be that difficult,
Right.
right? At the end of the day, most of us are the brands, right? So how do you just take yourself and amplify that and into the entire organization,
Right.
essentially?
And I think there's some bleeding over between uh, your brand isn't just like a logo;
Yeah,
it's
no.
a culture.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's
I
how,
mean, who was it? Jeff Bezos. I think he said it the best. A brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right?
Mhm.
And I want people to speak highly of me when I'm in the room. I want them to say that they've had a great experience when they podcast with me when I'm not in the room. I always love when people say it's all about who you know, and I say the opposite. I heard this somewhere at some point in my life over the last 5 years, and instead of that saying it's all about um, who knows you. So when I walk in a room, I don't want to have to go and greet people, do this, that, and the third. I want people to know who I am when I walk in the room. So they're
Mm.
coming to me to partner with me, to have opportunities to do podcasts or opportunities to bring a doctor into the organization. It's all about who knows you and not about all who you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really kind of I love that.
Yeah.
With the rise of digital media,
Yes.
you've adopted that and have mastered it in many ways.
Thank you.
Can you share some insights for other doctors who, because you've given lectures on it,
Yeah.
you've got a good, I'd say, finger on the pulse of it. Can you just share kind of your thoughts on social media, on media in general, and using that for practice, for business, for personal?
Yeah. Well, I think before you can even step into that landscape, you have to master this in-person conversation.
Mhm.
This is what's going to build relationships, right? You have to actually create value for people as well. And I think once you find your niche and you're able to create that value and you've built that brand, then you can go to that digital landscape. And I'm a big fan of everyone in this world should have a LinkedIn page.
Mhm.
I feel that LinkedIn changed my career. It changed me personally and professionally and has opened up the door to tremendous opportunities. Simply because on LinkedIn, you can see what everyone does. So you can put yourself in their path at any given time.
Mhm.
Prime example, say that you want to do something in pediatrics. You can go on LinkedIn and see who's the experts in pediatrics. You can start commenting on their pages or their articles. And before you know it, you're going to start some dialogue and build some type of friendship or relationship digitally that when you actually see that person in person at a conference, they're now your best friend or maybe your mentor or something like that, right? So to answer your question, I think it's all about building the relationships, but doing that in person first, and then going hard in the paint when it comes to building a digital landscape.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn is one of those pieces that you want to make sure that you play around with. I think also it's very important to make sure that you have the same look and feel on all platforms.
Hmm.
You can offer different content, but have the same look and feel. Prime example, LinkedIn for me is all business to business, right? Instagram for me is some business to business, but more business to consumer because a lot of my folks that follow me on Instagram are my patients
Hmm.
and student doctors, right? So making sure that you're putting the right content out on those different platforms is key because you don't want to confuse people. When people come to you, you want to make sure that they know the right platform to gain the information or knowledge that they're looking for.
Right.
That way you can get your message across essentially.
And I have seen and reflected on that with my own kind of goals
Yeah,
within social media, because with Instagram, when I started, I'm just like, okay, let me have the Dr. Eye Health thing I was
yeah,
really just experimenting with early on for YouTube. And then I'm like, okay, well, I should be on Instagram too. So let me have the brand over there. Let me try just throw it out on each platform. But then over time, I realized, you know what? A lot of consumers are following me for
yeah,
that. And that's primarily who I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to educate the public.
right.
And thankfully, a lot of doctors do follow me, which is great.
Yeah,
But that's not how I can best educate doctors. It's not the best way for me to connect from business to business side of
right,
things. So that's why I started a whole separate one that's just me talking about doctor
right,
life and sharing clinical insights
right.
and my interests and passions on the more science
Sure.
medical side of things.
Yeah,
But it took me some time to have that clarity of like,
yeah,
oh, this is not the right place
yeah,
for me to be talking about that.
yeah.
Let's move it over
You got to
here.
play on the right playground. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost in the sauce in our profession. They just want to throw anything out on all the platforms and they don't realize that you're actually confusing the end user.
Mhm.
There's a patient base, there's a professional base. Which one are you trying to cater to? And if you want to cater to both, just make sure that you have the right platforms to amplify that
Yeah.
messaging.
And that the branding is consistent,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
wanna be one thing over another spot.
Oh, yeah. You got to be consistent. And that's no different from owning a practice. Again, if I go to a website and I see the website's amazing, modern, when I go into the practice, it needs to reflect the same thing. Right. And sometimes what I've seen is I'll see an image online and I'll go into a practice and I'm like, what the hell? This is not the same thing.
Ah, yeah.
So it has to match all around.
I love, using the kind of patient experience of speed dating,
Yeah.
right? Each patient you're seeing, you're kinda speed dating. If you went on a date with somebody, a blind date, and they showed up late, how would you feel about that? Your
Yeah.
first impression, "Oh, they're late." And
Yeah.
sometimes as doctors, it's tough for us to manage. I think people kind of understand it a little bit. But then you have all the other red flags that would come up.
Yeah.
Are they rude? Are they paying attention to you?
Right.
Are they not? Are they? Is your date looking at their phone the whole time? And that's again another tough thing for us because we're looking at EMRs and
Right.
it's so there's a lot of those sort of factors. Are they rude? Like in a date, are they rude to the waiter? Are they rude to the staff?
Right.
Because I imagine if a patient just through the wall overhears you being kind of disrespectful to
Oh,
your
yeah.
staff members,
Yeah.
and that culture is poor,
Yeah.
it's not going to reflect very well on their experience or how they will think of you treating them and
Yeah.
offering care to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you 100%.
With with that whole idea of speed dating, it sounds like yeah, if you walked into a clinic to evaluate them, consult with them, and you looked up online, wow, your website looks great, and then
Oh,
you
yeah.
actually get there and like this place is
Crappy.
dirt, yeah,
Yeah.
then it's being catfished,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. We're really getting into this dating experience
yeah,
here,
yeah.
right?
That's kind of how it is. Or and I feel bad for the way a lot of patients experience it, because they think, oh, my vision insurance is going to cover
Yes.
this procedure, these services, and then they feel this confusion, disconnect when they get a bill for a procedure that they absolutely needed, that
Right.
we may have told them that they're may be
Right.
applied to their deductible, and then they didn't quite get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you, man.
So I do want to take a moment to just give some air to the special involvement you've had with the Black eye care perspective, because I think that's an important thing for diversity in culture. We need to be aware of this.
Absolutely, man. We definitely need to be aware of it. This is a topic that I get excited about because it's impacted me personally.
Mhm.
Black Eye Care Perspective was created back in 2019 with Dr. Adam Ramsey and I. What took place was myself and him went to a conference and we were hanging out, having a good time. And we were looking around and we noticed that there were no other Black faces in that conference. And I'm talking, there were close to 1,000 people that were there. And we started to dive deeper into the topic and started to look a little further. And we realized that there are less than 2% of African Americans that practice that are optometrists. And then we dug a little deeper and realized that at that time, I think there was less than 3% of optometry students that were Black. And we knew that there was a big red flag there.
Mhm.
And we came up with Black Eye Care Perspective, and our whole goal has been to create what we call our 13% promise. And that 13% promise is essentially used to gauge where we need to go. How can we reach a target, right? And our whole goal is to really just align with what the US Census is. It's not a quota or anything at all like that, but what does the US look like? And about 13.8% of the US folks are Black. So our goal is to create 13% of the population of optometrists to be Black. We want 13% of students to be Black. We
Mhm.
want to get, to the point where when we look at boards, there's at least 13% of Black representation that are there. We just want to reflect exactly what the US Census reflects. And it's important to have that diversity because that's going to help out with patient care. I mean, there's studies out there that have shown, that if a patient sees themselves in a doctor, it's going to produce better healthcare
Yeah.
outcomes.
We're
So
gonna
it's
have
very
better
important. Better
connections,
connection,
right? You're gonna take the recommendations maybe more
Absolutely.
seriously, adherence, all these different things
All of
get
that
echoed.
stuff, all of that stuff. And it's very important to be able to give the best patient care. But we also don't want to just do that by ourselves. I want to have a conversation with you. I want you, when you go into a office or an exam lane with a Black patient, to be able to understand some of the things that they go through.
Mhm.
What is their culture about? What foods do they like? You want to be able to build that relationship in that exam lane. And I think together we can really make that magic happen.
Mhm.
So over the last couple of years, we have really started to create a strong pipeline for Black students. Currently, we're the only one recognized by ASCO for a pre-optometry club that's a virtual pre-optometry club.
Cool.
And it's known as our Black Eye Care Perspective Pre-Optometry Club, essentially, right? And I remember like yesterday where we just had maybe a handful of students, and now we have over 220 students that are a part of that organization. And in that organization, they meet every month on the 13th. We want to reach that 13%. So we're going to meet on the 13th of every month.
Mm.
And within that club, what happens is we have different schools come in and they talk about what they're doing in the diversity space. We also have a coach that comes in to get them mentally prepared for school because optometry school is not a joke. You mentally have to be prepared. So they go through different exercises. They touch on imposter syndrome. They touch on all those things to make them a stronger student when they get into school.
Right.
And then we have an amazing team, Dr. Jacoby Cleaver and Dr. Essence Johnson, that actually sit down with them and help them review any kind of applicant work that they may need help with prior
Mhm.
to hitting that submit button. And the thing that I really love is that the industry sees this as a problem and they have come in and helped to make a difference.
Yeah.
We've partnered with the likes of My Eye Doctor, NVI, Warby Parker, and some of these organizations bring their team members in and help with, preparing a resume, how to sit in an interview, how to communicate through an interview. Other partners have done things where they've donated or they provided mobile units for us to go on campuses and provide eye exams for Black and brown faces that have maybe never get received an eye exam. And then other organizations have partnered with us to bring them to their facilities to see what it looks like from an exam standpoint or a product standpoint. But it's been an enjoyable ride, man. And I just want to give a shout out to all our partners out there, especially Transitions and Johnson & Johnson Vision, because they have made a big impact on these students' lives.
Well, amazing work because it is such an important thing.
Yeah,
And I think back of when I was a student, I think we only had like two students in my class
yeah,
who were black,
yeah,
and I can kind of understand, not fully.
yeah,
I get a glimpse of this feeling when
yeah,
I was there and I'm like, I'm one of like 12 guys in a room
yeah,
full of like 60, 60 plus women.
yeah.
And it's like that's not even close,
Sure.
right? But it's still it's changes your perspective,
Yeah.
starting to understand how different that is, and then understanding how it affects our health,
Oh
our
yeah.
healthcare system, and just realizing, no, this is a huge cultural difference, and it affects optometry as a brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff overlaps. I mean, clearly, again, branding is what I love to do with
Yeah,
Black Eye Care Perspective, Defocus Media, My Eye Doctor, whatever it is. How can I add value to our
yeah.
profession through the world of branding? But yeah, it's an issue, man. I mean, being in a school and not seeing anyone that looks like you can
Mm,
be terrifying. Being at a school where you might not be able to buy hair products because your demographic doesn't live in that community can be difficult.
mm,
Being in a community where you may have to drive through mountains just to get to the nearest airport can be scary if you don't see yourself in that community.
yeah,
So, it's a big deal. And the schools are doing a better job with providing, more inclusive environments and things of that nature. But we got a lot of work ahead of us. But ASCO has done an incredible job. The AOA has done an incredible job. And the schools have really stepped their game up in regards to making sure that there are more Black and brown faces, but also Hispanic faces as
yeah.
well.
To all the minorities,
Absolutely.
all that.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
So I just want to give props to you. Thank you for all that you've done.
I appreciate it.
You've extended your talents and insights to so many parts of to optometry, and I see you as a visionary in our profession. I see
Thank
you as
you.
a leader, and I've learned from you. So
Man, you're too kind, too kind. And I want to give you your love as well. I want to give you your flowers. You're a legend, man, a living legend. You have changed the game for eye care. You have branded this profession greatly. When I go to your YouTube page and I see your content, it brings a smile to my face because I know that there's someone out there that's educating the right message to our patients. Things that you mention on your videos, patients come in and they ask me questions about it. But you spark that conversation. You spark that branding of our profession. And I love it, man. So continue doing the damn thing and representing eye care for us because we need that rebranding.
thank you. I'll do my best. But from here, Daryl, thank you so much for being a guest. I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll have opportunities to have you back on again.
absolutely.
We see each other at like every single meeting.
I
So
know, right?
uh, for the rest of the day, hope you just have an amazing time. And again, we'll talk to you soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much, man.
Hey there, my friends. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in and making it this far in the episode. If you have been getting value out of these different episodes here on the I Give Damn podcast, then please do me an extra favor. We've noticed statistically the vast majority of our viewers and listeners have tuned in and digested the content, but they're not hitting the subscribe and follow buttons. And it means a lot if you were able to do that. So just taking an extra second of your day after hearing this episode, either on YouTube to the Fluorescene channel, hit the subscribe button there, or on your favorite podcasting platform, just hit that follow button for us. Those statistics do help this channel grow. It does help us have better production and ultimately bring on better, more valuable guests so that we can talk about the important topics that you truly give a damn about. But with that, again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.